Welcome to Volunteer for Israel's 149th episode of VFI Educates. Volunteers for Israel mission is to send volunteers to Israel to serve on IDF bases and other things. And we have a couple of announcements before we have Julia's presentation today. Thank you all for joining us on this nice, cool Thursday afternoon. Where's it cool? No, not here. First thing, of course, everybody knows President Biden has COVID. I don't know that they'll be very long or extensive, but he definitely has caught it. The suspicion is that he got it from the Saudi Arabians. Anyhow, this afternoon, this morning, at 11:30 in Harrisburg, Lieutenant Colonel Shai Shul, who is a friend of VFI Educates and who actually gave us at least 3 presentations in the past 2 years, had a ceremony in his honor because he had finished his 3-year duty service in Harrisburg. He is with the Medical Corps, part of the Logistics Corps of IDF, and he represented Israel's interests in acquiring medical supplies and briefing American people on Israel and medical-related things. He is a veteran of 3 wars, and I think he's been in the service like 30 years. Anyhow, he's a dear friend of ours. He's been very helpful to our organization, and we wished him well. So they had it actually live on Facebook. So it was very nice to watch the presentations, the saluting, all the gifting, and that was kind of neat. Another announcement is Sophia. I'm not sure she's on today, but she is the cousin, and Sophia had a little baby girl 2 days ago named Bella. And Sophia is located in suburban Moscow, and she has dropped in the last couple of sessions with us. Last announcement has to do with VFI Plus Archaeology, which is the upcoming archaeological-based 2-week tour. And for those folks who might be on this show today who are involved, we'll be accelerating the invoicing process a little bit because of pressure in Israel to lock in hotels, because apparently there's more people looking for hotel rooms than there are hotel rooms, and we don't want to get locked out. So we're working on that, Alana and I. End of announcement. Alana, did anything you wanted to say?
Just if anyone is interested in one of the Plus programs, archaeology or advanced, please feel free to email me. I, as always, will put my email in the chat.
Right. Yeah, and I just waiting for Julie. Next presentation is being given by Brigadier General Stein. Is that his name? Anyhow, he is the general, the 1-star general in charge of the IDF Logistics Corps. He's active duty general right now, and it's under the Logistics Corps that SAREL and VFI work. They basically are the military partners, and he's the head of that whole logistics operation for the entire IDF. He'll be presenting next week at 2 o'clock live from Israel. I don't know exactly what his topic will be, but he can talk about a range of different things. I think it will be interesting, whatever he talks about. Julia is just back, or back a couple of days from her journeys. I don't know if you know why Julia's taking all these little trips. Maybe she explained in the past, but I'll just take a moment and cover it. Julia, you know, is a trained tour guide for many years, but she also is licensed to train other tour guides. And Julia decided to extend her license, qualified and licensed to offer foreign touring to Israelis. And so she has been, as part of her curriculum to get that additional license, has been taking trips to faraway places and learning how to tour in those locations and doing example work and all that stuff. So she's basically both a teacher and a student at the same time. So that's one of the reasons that Julia is going to report today on her latest trip. And so we're looking forward to that. Is Julia with us here?
She is.
She's back?
She's just muted.
Yeah, I am here.
Okay.
I am here.
Okay.
So I'm tiny. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, and we are recording. And Julia, welcome home. Take it back.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all who came to listen about Croatia. Yeah, okay, so I will start sharing my screen, and then I will tell you about Croatia. And, well, it was fascinating. I don't know how many of you have ever been to Croatia. That was my first time. I hope you can see my screen. It says Croatia, the jewel of the Adriatic Sea. Yes? Okay, awesome. And this is the same area which is right behind me. I'm not sure, maybe it's even the same photo. And yes, as Alvin just recognized, this is Plitvitce. It's beautiful, and here it comes. So, as Steve said, a training tour as a hopefully future tour guide for Israelis abroad. It was very educational. It was very challenging. I mean, traveling with 40 other Israelis overseas is not easy. You know, those who've been to Israel, you know that we tend to be difficult. And that was no exception. On top of that, it happened to be a primarily Muslim group, which I was not aware of when I registered for the tour. So we were 40 of us, plus and there were 3 Jews and the others were Muslim. Wow. So I was one of the Jewish, yeah, which is not, I mean, it's an abnormal percentage. It just happened to be a primarily Muslim group. Most of them lived in a town some 7 minutes drive from here. So we are basically neighbors, but they're Muslim, and that added to the challenge because, you know, differences in mentality. But let me start. So if you're new to the program, I'm Julie Newman, and this is a pay as you wish presentation, and you have people address here. And here we start. So I would start with the fact that I was in very early morning flight. This
3 in the morning.
Pardon?
3 in the morning. Holy mackerel.
Yeah, exactly. No, the flight was scheduled. I don't know who said that, but the actual flight was scheduled for 5 a.m., which is early, and this what the airport looked like at 3 a.m. Can you see how packed and jammed it is? I mean, I've never seen it that bad. I was in the airport some 3 weeks ago on my way to Sinai, and it was better. It was not very good, but it was better. Now it's actually getting worse. So this is what it looked like at 3 a.m. And so now if you're about to leave Israel from Ben Gurion Airport, so you are advised to be there 5 hours before the flight. You know, normally it was 3 hours. Now it's recommended to make it 5 hours. It's even more recommended not to have any checked-in luggage, so just a trolley. And then, you know, as many people as possible carry trolleys, which makes it impossible to fit them into the airplane because the airplane is not built with so many trolleys. So that's another difficulty. But okay, so we survived the jam at 3 a.m. and 3 hours later, that's it, 3 hours flight, we made it to Zagreb Airport. That's Zagreb Airport, 8 a.m. I didn't take a photo inside, but believe me, it was empty. Okay, it was us, there was another Israeli group, and that's it. And this is what it looks like from on the outside. It's tiny little airport. It's just the best, you know. After Ben Gurion, it was amazing. So 8 a.m. we picked up our luggage and we started driving to Zagreb. So just before I share photos of Zagreb, some general information, you know, and I don't know if you ever been there. So Croatia ID. The size is about 21, a bit over 21,000 square miles, which means about almost three times as big as Israel. Okay, it's not very big, but, you know, much bigger than us. The population, though, is nearly 4 million. Now, out of these 4 million, some do not live in the country, some live abroad. So we are talking about people who are registered as living in Croatia. There are different estimations to how many are not actually present there. So the various estimations talk of between 500,000 to 1 million. The bottom line is that the population of Croatia is tiny comparing to the size of the country. And so everything is so green and an open space. And even the cities are very nice and small. They feel like towns. I mean, it's a beautiful place if you love rural areas. The borders, it has quite a few borders: Slovenia, Hungary, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Montenegro, and Italy, and of course the long and beautiful coastline of the Adriatic Sea. And this is the blue water you see on this satellite photo now. This is the Adriatic Sea, which separates Croatia and Slovenia, former Yugoslavia, from what is across the Bay, and this is Italy. In terms of economy, we have about 2% of the workers employed in agriculture, which is similar to what happens in Israel, 27.3% in industry, and 70.8%, which is the total majority, in services. You see that the industry contributes about 90% of the GDP. They produce everything starting from medical and electronics and into food products and petroleum. They have agriculture, of course. They have natural resources, and they have plenty of water and flowing rivers. So the hydroelectric power contribute to about 60% of their electricity consumption, which is amazing, which means that the country can be less polluted and cleaner. And you can, when you land there, you actually feel how clean the air is. Now, this is another map which I chose because here you can see very well the borders of Croatia. You see that Croatia has a long coastal plain, this long line along the Adriatic Sea. And this square form closes the most beautiful, the most famous part of Croatia, which is called Dalmatia. And this is where the famous towns of Split and Dubrovnik and others are located. This is the area we're not going to visit. I mean, I did not visit it on my tour, so it is not part of the presentation. I will just share a few photos from the Google so you'll see what we're missing. But most people who do visit Croatia, they go to this coastal area. So most of Croatia is actually inland, and then this long coastal part, which borders with Croatia and Serbia and Montenegro on the south. Now, a few facts about Croatia, which I did not know before. I was, that was part of the experience. They have no mandatory military service, which is especially interesting for me because, as you know, Noam is now in the army. I mean, he's actually home, but he's registered as a soldier. So in Croatia, for quite a long time now, they don't have mandatory military service. They do have military service, which is professional army, which means that if you want to join, you join. If you don't want, you don't. And the military is not a very good career. I mean, it's a low-paid job, which means that the army is not very good. On the other hand, probably they don't need that much of an army being part of the European Union. Anyway, it's not mandatory, and that will not be your first choice of career. You'd better do something else. If there's nothing for you, so then you'll join the army. They have very low unemployment rate. But that's because many people work abroad, because if you're Croatian, so your average income would be around, would be around 500 euros. Okay, 500 euros. Euro today is almost same as dollar. So average income will be $500 per month, which is, which is low, which is also low comparing to the cost of living in Croatia, which is quite similar to the situation in Israel. Croatia is too expensive of a country for its own citizens. So it's not expensive for us coming from Israel. Well, Israel is one of the most expensive countries in the world now, unfortunately. Tel Aviv was just voted to be the most expensive city in the world for living. Okay, so coming from Israel, nothing is too expensive, and especially not Croatia. But for the Croatians, it is too expensive. I mean, for example, the prices in Croatia tend to be around 30% maybe, okay, depending on what, of course, but around 30% lower than the prices in Israel. Okay, but if the average income in Israel is around $2,000, so the average income in Croatia is 1/4 of this. which means that it's impossibly expensive. And again, since they're members of the European Union, so a Croatian citizen can freely go and work wherever they want around Europe. And so chances are that if you leave Croatia, you will find a job which will be a better paid one. And therefore, they have very low unemployment rate because whoever wants to work goes abroad. That's the situation. And another thing which was very surprising for me, I mean, you know, again, living in Israel, especially being Jewish living in Israel, you constantly deal with World War II, or more precisely with the Shoah, with the Holocaust. I mean, we never forget, because the whole thing about Israel is a result, you know, in a way, of the Holocaust. I mean, that's so obvious that I don't need to say more about it. So World War II is sort of alive and kicking in Israel, but I always thought that this is like, it's unique for us. It's not the case for other people. And then as I was talking to our driver, I will show you the photo in a minute, we talked about politics and about current situation in Croatia, and at some point I realized that it's all about World War II. I mean, the current politics of Croatia are all about what happened or what did not happen during World War II. I mean, people vote today because of what happened over 80 years ago, and that was quite surprising for me. People make friends or don't make friends because of what their grandparents did or did not do during the war. I mean, well, we were talking about politics and, you know, right wing and left wing. So I asked him, what does he mean by right wing? You know, when I say right wing in Israel, it's primarily about the Palestinians. I mean, generally speaking, the Israeli politics is about Jews and Arabs, Israelis, Palestinians. That's what it is. So I've asked him, what are the politics are about in Croatia? And he said, well, that's about, you know, the Ustaše and the partisans. That's about things which happened then. So that was a very interesting insight for me. So if you vote today in Croatia, you vote for or against the Nazis who don't exist for so long. Croatia declared independence from Yugoslavia, of course, June 25th, 1991. This is when Yugoslavia fell apart, and this is where the entire communist cluster ceased to exist. And what you see in front of you is the Croatian flag. I wanted you to listen to a little bit of Croatian language, which is very similar to Russian. I mean, not similar enough for me to understand, but it sounds very similar. So here is the greatest hit of Croatian music today. Okay, I have to admit that I did not like it so much personally, but it's not about liking. It's about, you know, for you to hear Croatian and to see the greatest Croatian singer at the moment. Here it comes. It's a very long song, so we will listen to just a fraction of it. I need hear it. Okay.
Vrijeme nam ide svima isto. Tu je bar pravde, tu je sve čisto. Sa tobom sanjam, s tobom sam dite, kraj tebe više ne vere, ne prite. Sa tobom sanjam, s tobom sam dite, s rukom u ruci
you got the idea. And here it goes on and on. Obviously, it's a song about love and destiny and faith. And she's a beautiful woman. And I think that contributed to her success. Well, as I said, Yugoslavia was formed out of Slovenia, Croatia, and Bosnia-Herzegovina, and so many other towns, so many other countries, which when Yugoslavia fell apart, they formed the independent states. What you see here are the flags of the socialist republics, which all were part of Yugoslavia. And today we're talking about the independent states with flags which are very, very similar one to the other. As you can see, we have Russia and Slovenia, Croatia and Serbia, and they all share the same colors and they have almost the same flag, which is very confusing. As you can see, the only difference between the Russian flag and the Slovenian flag is that symbol, this coat of arms of Slovenia, which represents the most famous and beautiful natural area of Slovenia, which is called the Triglav, which is three-headed mountain. Anyway, so when I saw, I never paid attention, but as we were traveling in Slovenia, all of a sudden I realized that, hey, we have the same flags all around. And then I've asked myself, why did they choose these colors? And the answer is that about 250 years ago, the Russian Tsar, Peter the Great, the one who established the first connection between Russia and the Western world, he was the one who created the Russian flag. There was no Russian flag beforehand. He actually learned the idea of a flag of a state from Western Europe. So he chose these colors, which belong to the most famous icon of St. George, which was the most popular icon, Christian icon in Russia back then. So these are the colors of the icon, which became the colors of the flag of quite a few Eastern European states today. And as I've mentioned before, Croatia is now part of the European Union. They became the members of the European Union in July 1st, 2013. They're very happy about it. It allows them to work wherever they want, and they were so happy and proud. So in the middle of Zagreb, the capital city, you have this statue. You can see the star and brown square, stone-made brown square on it with that date of the declaration of their participation in the European Union. And right now they don't use euros, they still use their original money, which is called kuna. But January 1st, within less than 6 months, they will become part of the Schengen agreements, and then they will start using euros, and then there will finally be no borders whatsoever, at least visible borders between them and the other states, because currently when you leave Croatia or enter Croatia by car, so you are stopped and your passport is stamped, and it takes a while. So, but within less than 6 months, you will be freely driving just as you do in Western Europe. So these are the few iconic places we're not visiting this time along the Adriatic Sea. I have to admit that it looks so beautiful, so I have to come back. The amazing blue color of water and the ancient towns. And this is the most iconic spot of all. This is Dubrovnik, a small ancient town in the southern end of the Adriatic coast. And this ancient town, still surrounded by a wall, is on a cliff. So it doesn't have any beaches. It just has a beautiful view. So we are not going there. This is Boko. This is the driver I already mentioned. He was our guardian angel and guiding star in the same time, because he was just amazing as a driver, as a specialist on everything. He knew every road, he knew every corner, he knew every stop, and he kept advising the guide where to go, what is better to do at what time, and what's going on around us. So I can truly say that without Boko, there would be, I can't imagine the tour. And it was especially beneficial for me because, as I told you, I did not have that many people to talk to. And he was a very intelligent person to talk about everything. And then I learned so much from him. This is the first road. We hit the road on our way from Zagreb airport. It doesn't look like much. Actually, it looks quite disappointing, but don't worry. It took only about 20 minutes and we made it to Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, the largest city of Croatia with a population of a bit over 700,000, which is huge, you know, given the fact that the entire population is less than 4 million. It's old, it's small, it's clean, it's pretty. It has beautiful parks and gardens, so many museums and galleries and ancient spots. I mean, Zagreb deserves so much more than it got. I mean, we spent only about an hour and a half in Zagreb, that's it. And we were dead tired after the night flight, so that's another thing to visit. Again, this is one of the central squares of Zagreb. You can see the different colors of the buildings and the model of the city with the cathedral, with a beautiful cathedral, which is located on top of a hill right in the center of the town. So as we got to Zagreb, we had a break just to get something to eat and coffee, you know, just to relax a little bit. So I started walking around, and that's the food which was primarily offered. So many cakes. I mean, the cakes in Croatia and Slovenia as well are amazing. Highly recommended cakes. Lots and lots of corns. I mean, as you drive around, you see cornfields and you see women who offer either cooked corn or roasted corn. I mean, whatever, just have a corn. And around the corner, I was quite surprised, but I discovered this. You see this lower photo? These are falafel. Okay, that's something I did not expect to find in the middle of Zagreb, but here it was, falafel and shawarma, which means that there are quite a lot of, you know, Mediterranean origin people around. And then, of course, the pork. The photo here is not yet pork, just pigs. That was very problematic because what Croatians and Slovenians primarily eat is pork. Now, as you know, Jews, at least the observant Jews, don't have pork, and same is true for Muslims. So generally speaking, for Israelis, having a meal in this area is very complicated. So we asked, you know, in the hotels, we specifically asked for a dinner which will have at least one dish which is not pork, and they truly didn't know what to do with it. So they really tried to help. Okay, so they made something with no pork for us, and that's something with spaghetti with beef and cream sauce, which made it no good again for the Jews. Okay, they couldn't get it. Now it is so it's impossible for the locals to understand that people truly don't have pork, like not just today or tomorrow. They generally speaking, they don't have pork. That's unheard of, and it really made them sad. I mean, they were really sad for us. As Boko asked me, the driver, hey, do these people know what they miss? I mean, you know, did they ever have pork? Do they understand what they lose? And I said, look, different people are different. So some of them don't know what they miss, but I'm sure there are things which you miss and you never tried. So, okay, everybody with his own understanding of what good food is. And for me, this is the best. I mean, raspberries and red currant are all I need when I get to Europe. So for me, that could be breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I had so much of them, and they're so good. I mean, For a few years now, we try to grow raspberries in Israel, especially Golan Heights and Gush Etzion, but they're not as good as the Europeans. We can do nothing about it. So everybody got something to eat, and then we toured around Zagreb, and we made it to this beautiful cathedral, which is visible from all over the city. And unfortunately, it's under restoration, so we could not enter it, but at least we could see it from outside. We walked through some markets. We saw the statue of the patron, the protector of the city, which is St. George, of course. And St. George is riding a horse, and he killed the dragon. Now, down here, this is the head of the dragon. Now, somehow I was in the back of the group and I did not hear the explanation of the guide. So when I made it to the statue, I was like, okay, there is somebody riding a horse. And then, okay, you see, this is what it looks like when you take a closer look. It looked like a catfish to me. Would you agree? So, yeah. Okay, so I was trying to recall who is that gentleman who killed a catfish or had something to do with a catfish and why he has a statue here. And I could make it. So in the end, I asked the guide and she said, oh, this is St. George killing the dragon. So this is the dragon. This is not a catfish. Okay, maybe. And then we kept walking, and then I saw this beautiful face of a gentleman on the wall. Does anybody recognize and can tell me what is the connection between this gentleman on the right and the red car on the left? Do you recognize? Okay, I see no answers on chat. I can see that somebody recognized George and the dragon, which is great. Nicola, right, okay. Michelle Gruber, thank you. Yes, this is Nikola Tesla. And Nikola Tesla, of course, gave his name to the Tesla cars. And Nikola Tesla happened to visit Zagreb. I did not know that, but back in 1892, he did visit Zagreb and he stayed in this particular house. So we have his face and we have quite a few Teslas driving around Croatia. We took a left and there was a little street which looked, it's difficult to see what you see in front of you, but it does look a bit special, I hope. So let's take a closer look, and that's what it is. I mean, that looks like a church, right? It really looks like a church. And here you have a special place to light candles, which is a tradition, you know, when you ask for something or you want to commemorate a deceased person dear to you. And there's so many plaques here. So again, taking a closer look, now you can see the candles better. You see that there are words in Croatian, some names, and the word hvala. You see here, there's a hvala here and hvala here and hvala again and again. Hvala means thank you. Hvala is also appreciation in Russian, so you know, close meanings. So anyway, there was a gate of the ancient town of Zagreb there, and in one of the wars, during one of the invasions, the invaders stopped at this very gate, and this is how the city was saved. And so this place became sort of a, you know, a holy place, because this is where God helped and saved the Croatians, and it became sort of an outdoors church. So you stop by, you put a candle, you make a short prayer, you think whatever you think. You can put a plaque saying thank you God for whatever, you know, you should thank him for personally, and then you just keep walking. So it was a very small and very moving spot. And then again, around the corner, because everything's so small, we made it to the central square. And this is one of the iconic buildings, one of the symbols of the city, the Church of St. Mark. And right and left, we have actually the very source of power and rule for entire Croatia. So this building on the right is the parliament, and here on the left, this is the president's residence. And there are no fences. I mean, what you see here in front of you is not a fence to prevent people from walking in. It's just a fence to prevent, this is the parking area, and then there is a walking area, but everybody can freely go into the church, of course, or to the parliament. And, when I saw that, and again, if you ever been to Israel, so you remember the guards around the Knesset and next to the Prime Minister's home. I mean, there's no way you can just walk into the Knesset because you just feel like it, You will be checked, searched. You can't even enter this big open square in front of the Knesset. And for a very good reason, of course. But here, Croatia, everything feels so safe, so easygoing. It's just a nice open building, open for everybody. So again, I was jealous because of this feeling of safety, which we sometimes we miss. And then you walk upstairs, you make it to the very top of the city. This is what the red tiled roofs of Zagreb look like. And the tower, which used to be the protecting tower, which used to have, it still has a cannon up on top, which is not really functioning today. They do make a cannon shooting noise every day at noon, but that's a traditional thing. And then just before you start walking downstairs, there is a small balcony with so many locks. There are quite a few other places around the world, including Ljubljana, which is the capital of Slovenia, where we will be visiting in a few weeks together. And these locks, of course, symbolize the faithfulness of the loving couples who made it to Zagreb and placed the lock and threw the keys away. And so their hearts will be locked forever together. And all of a sudden, there was a tree and there was a sign. What happens in Zagreb stays in Zagreb. It's usually mentioned with Las Vegas. I don't know how many sinful places there are in Zagreb, so you have to make sure that everything stays in Zagreb. I don't know, or maybe somebody just visited Las Vegas and was jealous. But anyway, it was funny. And then next day we drove to the main attraction of this part of Croatia, which is the one behind me. But before we got there, I mean, it's about a 2 hours long drive, so you need to stop for coffee in, coffee out. And for our group, that stop was primarily for cigarettes. Almost everybody smoked and smoked pretty heavily, so okay, you need a break. And we just stopped at at the petrol station. And at that petrol station, there was a little convenience store, which was more than a convenience store. It was also like a small self-service restaurant. And it was so pretty. That was another thing I was a bit jealous about. They have amazing sense of aesthetics. They just know how to make things pretty and attractive. When you look at this photo down here, you see some cakes and some fruits and pastries. I mean, nothing really special, but it looks so good. It looks so attractive. And inside there was a small playground for kids, and there were muffins, huge, fat, beautiful muffins. Again, just an example of prices. A big fat muffin and coffee costed 12 kunas, which are about $2. Okay, that would be so much more in Israel. Here you have 2 barrels full of ice, and inside that ice they put bottles of mineral water and plastic cups with nicely cut watermelon. And since ice will melt at some point, of course, so you see there are little taps down here and buckets, and then the melted ice, the water will drop into the bucket, and every now and then they will just empty the bucket and irrigate the plants around. And so again, everything is so well planned. So it's a beautiful country to tour. This cow is here just because it reminded me another cow, which you can see up above it. The upper cow, the black and white cow, this is the photo taken in Plitvitce, which is a petrol station and a very popular stop on the way to Eilat. And this cow is the Croatian cow, which has to do with this chain of self-service restaurants called Marché. Anyway, I didn't notice, but her nose is a bit like duck nose, but I don't know. She is nice. She's nice, and the food is great. So we were driving for about 2 hours total, and then we made it to the Plitvitce Lakes National Park, which is what you see behind me, and it is so famous for the incredible, beautiful turquoise, greenish, bluish color of the lakes. The thing is that these lakes were formed as a result of biological and chemical activity, and they are formed on top of limestone and dolomite rocks, which means that the bottom of the lakes is very pale, almost white. Now they're called Plitvitce because the word Plitvitce is, well, excuse me my Croatian pronunciation, but it is shallow. Okay, it's not exactly Plitvitce, it's similar to it, but anyway, so the lakes are very shallow, and because they're shallow, you can see the white color of the bottom. That's, by the way, a little bit similar to the phenomena at the Dead Sea, you know, when you drive to the southern part of the Dead Sea, where the hotels are closer to Masada, so you see that the water is really like, the color is so different from what we normally see because of it being shallow and it being on top of white surface. So it's all about the colors, it's all about water, and there are a total of 16 lakes. There are 12 upper lakes, and then there's a waterfall, and then there are 4 more lower lakes. You can see it more or less on this map up here. Anyway, every lake has its own shape, and every lake has its own color because of the different depth and slightly different rock formations which are at the bottom. And you walk around the lakes and you move from one lake to the other lake, and all these lakes are connected by little streams and little waterfalls, and eventually you get to the major waterfall, and then that waterfall brings the water from the lowest lake into a river which is formed by these lakes. So that's the theory, and the reality is so beautiful. On this photo up here, you can see the big waterfall, the Veliki Slap. Okay, that's Croatian. The big waterfall as it looks at its best. That's during the spring when the snow and the ice melts. We did not see it as pretty as this. We saw it much smaller because we're almost at the driest season. And it's also so beautiful wintertime when the waterfall freezes, and that's what you see in this lower photo. Again, I did not see it, but it looks beautiful. And because of this fluctuations, because of the weather, you see that the average maximum flow changes from 1,000 gallons per second to as little as 20 gallons per second. So we were at around 50 or 60, I guess. That's what we were told. So this is the general view. As you enter the park, of course, there's an entrance fee, which is very high again, especially for the locals. And this is the first glance. These are the 2 little lakes, which are the lowest. And here we are getting closer. We walk downhill and downstairs. You can see this lake up here and this little waterfall which falls and feeds this little lake down there. And then we go downhill and downstairs, and eventually we make it to the waterfall. This is the great, so-called great waterfall. You can see that it's not great. I mean, it is great because it's the highest one. It's over 250 feet tall, but in terms of the amount of water, it's not that much. And well, we saw the photo taken springtime. So this is our group taking photos, and it's illegal to smoke in this park. I think it's a great idea. Not so much because you can burn it. I mean, there's enough water and enough rainfall, but just to keep the air clear, which is so great. And unfortunately, as I told you, the group, most of them smoked, and there was no way they would refrain from smoking for about 4 hours, especially outdoors. You know, it's not an airplane. So after a short while, I started feeling that smoke, you know, and then I looked around, and then I saw this gentleman not just smoking. I mean, he's not smoking a cigarette, he's smoking a pipe, you know, what's called nargila or shisha, okay? He brought a small suitcase with disintegrated nargila, and he would integrate it wherever possible. And then he just sat down in this beautiful park right next to the sign saying no smoking, and he enjoyed the smoke. Now, he truly enjoyed it. And I looked around and I saw that the other visitors, you know, they were shocked. They didn't know what to do with. And some of them just ignored, and others took photos because, you know, it's so weird. Nobody said anything. Even the local guide we had there said nothing. So I decided that, you know, I'm not going to educate him, and that was it. But it was so, you know, in a way, I was embarrassed. I really felt bad for Israelis. But then this incident was over, and we kept walking, and we made it to one more lake, which had such an amazing color that I did not even know what to say. I mean, it's not turquoise, it's not green, it's just the Plitvitce color. And the water is so clear that you can't actually tell how deep the lake is, because you can see all the way to the bottom, no matter how deep it is. It's just crystal clear and perfect and full of fish. And you're not supposed to feed the fish, of course, but some people fed the fish, and the fish were very happy about it. And that's how I managed to take a photo with so many fish, but it was not me. And there are ducks swimming around, and more little waterfalls and more ponds. And at some point you make it to the picnic area. And then this is the biggest lake. This is the biggest lake of the lower lakes. So you take a boat, which can take up to 100 people, so it's pretty big. And you just cross the lake in about 10 minutes. So it's not a big lake, but it's the biggest one. And again, it is so pretty and calm. And you can also take a little boat and, you know, a rowing boat and tour around the lake and spend the day. And well, it feels like paradise. The sunshine is perfect. The grass is perfect. The water is perfect. You're not allowed to swim though. And it is a bit cool, but you can paddle and sit down and just enjoy nature. So this is Plitvitce. Yeah, we spent about 4 hours there, and I could have spent like the whole week. And the 5 days out of, I mean, the whole tour was Croatia and Slovenia, and it lasted for a week. So we spent 2 days in Croatia and 5 days in Slovenia. So since I have just 1 hour for entire Slovenia, so I decided to include just one quick stop in Slovenia in this presentation. And this is the so-called Postojnska Yama. Okay, you can see it here. The J is not pronounced as J, it's pronounced as Y. Okay, so it's Postoinska Yama. Postoinska is it comes from the root of staying or being somewhere, like a place to stay, and Yama is a cave. It is a cave or just a big pit. So it's called the Postojna cave in English, and this is one of the biggest caves in the world. And this is the second biggest stalactite cave in the world. And since it's so big and long, so you need a train. You see, this is a little train, not open air because it's in a cave, but you don't have cars. So you just sit down, and then this train takes you deep into the cave and pretty fast. So the maximum depth of this cave is, almost 400 feet. It's almost 80,000 feet long, and all you can see as a regular traveler, I mean not as a researcher, as a regular traveler, is 1/5 of it, and that 1/5 feels so much. I mean, you drive into it, and that's about almost 4 miles long cave, and then that cave goes on and on and on, but you are not doing it. So the train takes you to a certain spot, and then you walk around. It has different levels, upstairs, downstairs, all around. You totally lose your sense of orientation. You have no clue where you are, and well, you have to have a local guide there. There's so many people in this cave, and it's such a beautiful stalactite cave, which is, by the way, really cool. The maximum temperature, the minimum temperature is 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was, it was over 90 degrees outside. And then you take a train, and then you drive into the cave, and then you get to 50. So you have to be, you have to be dressed like, we call it dressed like an onion. So I invite you to sit on the train, and we will take a very short ride into the cave. You will hear the noise of people being quite excited, and for a good reason. So that was a short ride, and then we were walking and walking and walking some more. And I'm a bit claustrophobic, so for me it was, at some point I was really looking forward to getting out of there. And then when I felt like, okay, I just had enough, I saw an amazing stalactite, and they have calcite, and they're shining and sparkling, and they have all sorts of shapes and sizes, and everything is so big. That's one of these things, I'm trying to describe, and you can hear that I'm excited, but I'm sure positive you have no clue unless you've been there. And it looks like corals, and it looks like ice cream, and it has different colors. And this one on the right looks like, in Israel we call it the elephant's ears, or a curtain. And if you've been to the Israeli stalactite cave, which is considered to be one of the most beautiful in the world, and for good reason, our stalactite cave in the Jerusalem mountains is amazing, but it is small. I mean, just as it should be because it's in Israel. But here you get to Slovenia, and Slovenia is a bit smaller than Israel, and all of a sudden they have this incredible stalactite cave, which was discovered, rediscovered in the end of the 19th century, and then it became a tourist site. But according to the inscription which were found inside this cave, people knew and used that cave starting from the 13th century, and it was even used as a warehouse for explosives during World War II. And at some point there was an explosion. So one of the holes inside the stalactite cave has, the stalactites are black. They are covered with what do you call it, this black substance, which is a result of a very heavy smoke because the fire went on a week inside. But the rest is clean and white and shining and a bit creamish, and it is amazing. I've been there 15 years ago, and now I came back, and I was even more impressed today than 15 years ago. I told my husband that, remember, we've been to Postojna Cave, and remember it was nice, but it was not as beautiful as this. And he said, well, of course, because you had little children with you, and you were way more worried about the kids and where they come and are they cold and all that. So you could not really enjoy the stalactites. So that's one of the advantages of being older and having no children with you. So I could fully enjoy the cave. Just a few more photos. You see, this is one of the holes. You can see the group deep inside, and more still here. You can see in the middle, you can see a stalactite, which met a stalagmite. In the stalactite cave in Israel, we have a few stalactites and stalagmites like this, which met, and there are two which almost met. They were missing like half an inch or something like that, and then they will not meet again because the stalactite dried out because the crack which supplied water to it was blocked, and so now it's not growing any longer. So they're called Romeo and Juliet. But fortunately, in Slovenia, the lovers do meet, and it is an active cave, meaning that the stalactites are still growing. So, if you come now, and you will come in 20 years, so there will be a slight difference, of course, very small difference, because they grow just 1 centimeter per year max. But the cave is alive, and so of course you have to be careful and not touch the formations. And this is the most beautiful, I don't know, here I can see a head of a dragon, if you can. The most beautiful, the whitest, the most shining stalagmite of all. So with this impressive stalagmite, I will finish the presentation for today. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining me in Croatia. And you're so much welcome to, of course, if you have any questions, so I will turn to the chat now. You are welcome to support paypal.me/Newman. And I hope to see you next week. Next week, as Steve mentioned, we have a presentation which I believe will be very interesting and very relevant for VFI by Ronen Cohen, who is in charge of the logistics force in the Israeli army. So thank you again, and I hope you enjoyed Croatia virtually. Okay, thank you, Lana. So I'm back to Plitvitce. I never left.
I think Steve is gone. Thank you so much, Julia. I've never been to Croatia, but I would love to go someday.
Yeah, it's highly recommended, both Croatia and Slovenia. In a few weeks, I will be talking about Slovenia, and it's beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so I see in the beginning people are talking about COVID, and then advanced Zagreb is the boundary between German and Slav culture. Yeah, maybe, even though you don't really feel the German culture, generally speaking, what you very much feel in both Croatia and Slovenia is the Italian culture, the Italian architecture, the Italian food, the Italian, not the language, but the vibe is very much Italian. And the fact that we have Saint Mark, Saint Mark is the patron, the saint who protects Venice, the most important, saint, the most important disciple in northern Italy, and he is all over the place. And the symbol, the winged lion with a book. Okay, that's something I will show you when we visit Slovenia virtually. But anyway, Italy is the major influence. I mean, it's a Slavic culture, a Slavic language, but the main influence is Italian.
I see Gail talking about all of her best vegetarian meals were in Croatia and Spain. Two countries that eat a lot of pork and wild boar.
That's
230.
strange about the pork. I never had any problem eating vegetarianism. Well, I mean, look, I'm vegetarian. Me personally, I'm vegetarian for over 30 years, and I do survive. But it is quite challenging because, for instance, for breakfast, okay. So for breakfast, they had croissant. And they had cheese, which was mixed with pork. Okay, so next day we asked them not to mix it with pork. So then we had cheese, which was separate. And then there was a salad, but the salad had sliced chicken in it. So it was not so good for vegetarians. And the pasta, again, had beef in it because, so again, you can make it, okay? But for instance, we stopped on the way back from Plitvitce. We stopped in the restaurant. It was a very nice and, large restaurant with a big, long menu. And it was one vegetarian thing on the menu, which was pizza margherita. So that's what I had, which is okay. It's inconvenient, but yes, definitely you can survive. Even more so, my children are vegan, which means that even cheese is no good. So that makes things even more complicated, and yet we travel and survive. And it is getting better. I mean, definitely it is getting better. Some of the best vegetarian meals I've eaten.
Yeah, that's what I read. That's what I read too.
Okay, Gail. Okay, so probably we were not in the same spots. Yeah. Okay.
Alvin. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Do you want to find it? I have the next one if you want.
Okay, yeah, because I see there's something great. Did you wait, Alvin, he said, did you notice all the tall people in Zagreb, entire families are each over 6 feet tall. This part of Croatia is known as the land of the giants. Well, frankly, I did not notice that. And I don't think I've seen so many locals in Zagreb because we were wandering around the center of the town, which is the most touristic place, of course. I'm not sure how many locals we actually saw. I mean, even the workers in the hotel where we stayed were not locals. They were from Turkey. So I am not sure about the size. Okay. Okay. Is there any Jewish life in Zagreb? Okay. So for tourists, there is a Chabad center. As in basically any other destination in the world, which provides kosher food, which provides a synagogue where you can, just meet other Jews. And so this is for the travelers. Besides travelers, there are only about 3,500 Jews living in Croatia currently. Most of them live in Zagreb. They are divided into a few communities, which don't cooperate because of, I did not understand why, but some reason they are no good friends. There are 2 working synagogues in Zagreb, and that's it. So not much of Jewish life. There were approximately 40,000 Jews living in Croatia just before the war, and almost none of them survived the war. The Yugoslavians, well, back to current politics. Yugoslavians, most of them supported the Ustaše, which was a local fascist party. They were the partisans, communist-oriented partisans fighting against them. But some Jews joined the partisans, but most Croatians back then, Yugoslavians, were anti-Jews, and so there's almost no Jewish community surviving the war. Most of those who live there today are either descendants who came back or newcomers. Okay, can you swim in the lake? Well, you are not allowed to swim in this lake. It's a national park, which is very unfortunate, but there are so many other lakes where you can swim, and you can swim in the Adriatic Sea, which is great fun. But not in this one for ecological reasons, because there's so many tourists. So if everybody will go into the water, so there will be pollution, and on top of that, the water will be much less clear, because you will get all the organic material from the bottom. Okay, Deborah, thank you. It was a great presentation. Thank you so much. And Lan, thank you for reminding about the support. Did we see the Croatian cellist Hauser? Oh, no, I did not. Where could I have seen? I don't know who he is. Sorry.
Valerie, if you want to unmute yourself, you're welcome to.
No, I just lost it. Wait a minute.
You
Let's
said
see
you
if I can get it to play.
Croatian cellist Hauser.
I believe this is, let's see if I can turn the volume up. I believe this is him playing at that waterfall.
Is the cellist who plays near the waterfall? We can't hear anything, Valerie.
Can't hear it?
Oh, not really.
Okay. Well, he's
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
he's playing in the lake with the waterfall behind.
well, it's
pretty-
so much better.
He's pretty famous around the world. But
And then did you see Frank? Did you comment on the Israeli salt cave? Julia, did you see that?
No.
Frank asked, can you comment on the Israeli salt cave?
Salt.
On the Israeli salt cave. Okay, not the stalactite, the salt. Okay, so we have quite a few salt caves in Israel. One of them, the biggest one, the most famous one, is usually, when you speak of a salt cave, so you mean this specific one, but there are so many of them. And all of them are located inside one mountain, which is the Sodom mountain, which is located in the southern end of the Dead Sea, like on the Israeli side, of course, on the southwest end of the Dead Sea. And it is an entire mountain made of ancient salt, which used to be the former bottom of the Dead Sea, and then forces from the underground, from the center of the earth, pushed it up there. So the entire mountain is very beautiful, because you can see the salt layers, and sometimes they're like parallel to the ground as you expect them to be, and sometimes they have like 45 degrees angle, and sometimes they're totally upside down. And walking around, it's not a hike, it's a walk. So walking around this salt mountain of Sodom is very special and beautiful. And since it is salt, so whenever there is rain, which is very rare, but it happens, so then the salt is dissolved, and then we have caves form. And some of them are smaller, some of them are bigger, some of them are really big. Some of them you can just walk into, like this famous salt cave, and some are just like shafts, vertical shafts.
Yeah.
And so you need, and then you need to have somebody who will help you with, rocks, and you basically do rappelling into these caves. It takes hours. It's a whole tour of inside the salt caves. It's something I would never do, but some people do it and they're very happy about it. So the big salt cave was, it was quite often visited, and I used to take groups there and all that. And then at some point, the geological survey proved that it's not safe because, it might collapse on you. So then the National Parks Authority just closed this cave, and now you can't, like, legally, you cannot go in. But there are other caves, especially those which are like more shaft looking. And then if you're brave enough and if you feel like spending hours in total darkness, well, you use flashlights, of course. So you just, get into it, hanging on rocks, and then you walk in, you crawl in, and eventually you get outside through an opening, which is at the footsteps of the mountain. Okay. So again, it's not for me, but if you want to do it, so I know guides who can take you there. Okay, well, I think we ran out of questions. And hey, does anybody want to say something?
Feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yeah, or just share your experience in Croatia or anything else.
I'll say something about the Slavic language. In Polish or Russian, it's a harsher sounding Slavic. By the time you get to Croatia, it's a softer sounding Slavic, and it almost sounds like Italian. By the time you get to Dubrovnik in southern Croatia, it's a very soft, it almost sounds Italian, and the people are talking with their hands. So yes, there is a very much Italian influence. Yes.
There was a restaurant where I lived in Texas. It was an Italian restaurant, and we went there often. And so finally I asked one of the guys, I said, "Where in Italy you were from?" And he says, "No, I'm from Croatia." So I could have sworn he was Italian, his accent is. So
one of the oldest Jewish cemeteries in Croatia is in Split on the hillside from the 1500s. There is a Sephardic synagogue on the Diocletian Palace. It's one of the oldest Sephardic synagogues in Europe. It's Split.
Yeah, but it's not functioning any longer. As far as
no, in Split. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a former synagogue in Slovenia, in Piran. But again, it was a synagogue before the war, and now it's a church.
The thing about it is in Dubrovnik too. We had a Jewish guide take us around the city of both Split and Dubrovnik, and they have a little jewel of a synagogue, just beautiful. That's in Dubrovnik. But they took all the Jews out of Dubrovnik, Croatia, Italy, to concentration camps, and when they returned, they all left for other places, mostly America. And so the synagogue is, those few that stayed converted to Christianity. So the synagogue is cared for, and they have tours and everything through it, but it's not Jewish people, and it's not now they have had some rabbis come to it and have done a wedding, a bar mitzvah. I think they were tourists that they did it with. So it's, I don't think it's ever been closed down as a synagogue. It's just there. So if anybody like, Chabadniks or something like that came, they probably could resume services in it. It's just beautiful. It has a little upstairs for women and everything.
Yeah, I was in Dubrovnik 60 years ago, and the synagogue was closed at the time. It hadn't really opened up after that.
Well, you have to make arrangements to have a
Yeah.
guide take you there.
Yeah, they had a beautiful festival at one time. I don't think they have it anymore.
No.
During World War II, the Italians occupied Dalmatia. That was the deal with the Germans.
Yeah.
And when the Italians surrendered in September 43, the Germans took over, and that pretty much ended the safety of the Jews in Dalmatia, including in Split. There's a story that when the Italians were there in occupation in Dalmatia, the local people were hungry. When the Italian soldiers had enough to eat, they give the extra food to the local people. When the Germans came in and the Germans had extra food, they threw the food on the ground and didn't give it to the local people. There's a difference between the Germans and Nazis and the Italians during World War II.
Well, I do know that during the war with Sarajevo, they did have some missiles that hit Dubrovnik. And as I told you earlier, last week, I think it was, every citizen, every person that we had a B&B with, anybody, the taxi driver, at the drop of a hat wanted to tell you all of the history of Croatia and Dubrovnik. It was really fun to see how everybody loved their country, their history, and wanted to share it with everyone else.
A funny story. We were visiting the cemetery in Split, Jewish cemetery in Split, and right at the gate of the cemetery is a cafe, and that building must have been the administrative office for the cemetery. And on it were some Hebrew words. I forget what they were at this time, but I translated it to the server at the cafe, and I said, "See that? This is what it means in English." And she goes, "Oh, I didn't know. I thought it was hieroglyphics." So there you go. Funny story.
Julia, if you want to go to sleep, we can keep talking about.
Yeah, this is turning into the schmooze. So
yeah, Pam and I thought maybe
Julia doesn't need to hear it all.
Yeah, that's true.
If you wanted to go to sleep, you're welcome. You're on mute, Julia.
Yeah, no, first of all, thank you for letting me go. And second, it was interesting for me to listen to you. I don't know that much about Croatia. I mean, I spent 2 days there, and then I was reading before and after. But some people here have memories from 60 years ago from Croatia, which is way more than I can, So thank you for sharing. And I really hope to see you again next week. I'm really, I believe it will be an interesting one and much more relevant than Croatia. Even though I wish you all that it will become relevant when you visit Croatia and Slovenia. Slovenia is amazing in 3 weeks from now. And there will be a synagogue, a non-functioning one. So thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, Gail, it is.
Julia.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Laila Tov. Uh-oh.
Okay. So now we're, as Steve said, although I don't know where he is, in schmooze mode. You're welcome to
recording.
I will stop recording. Larry, you didn't remind me to record.
Larry.
So I'm just going to wait till Pam tells me to stop recording.
I had somebody